Hello, we are live here on my YouTube channel, Being Human. Today is a big one. We have basically Greg Paul. So Greg, thank you so much for coming on to my show today. And I can't wait to basically get into this subject with you about law. You know everything there is to know. So I'm going to kind of keep it basic for the beginning because we're going to have you back, but we're going to keep it top level. How are you, first of all? How are you feeling today?
Well, I'm feeling pretty damn good, thanks, Nat. And
Good.
Thank you for having me on your channel. I've been looking forward to this chat. I definitely do not know everything.
Big one. We have basically
got a background, I think.
Greg, thank you so much.
I don't know.
For my show today, and I can't wait to.
Don't know. That's going background. Hold on, let me see. We've got a few.
Everything
background in yours. Have you got YouTube open as well, Greg? On your.
That would be. How are you?
We're a slight delay behind, so we'll start again. It's all right. We've got 15 people watching so far, so I'll go back on. That's better.
Okay, yeah, it was. YouTube was open on my computer. That was it.
All right. You're just a dedicated fan. You've got YouTube on in the background, so I respect that. Thank you for being a fan. So here we are. We've got it. So yes, let me start again. So we have Greg here from The Sovereign's Way, and Greg is going to be talking to me today about the very basic principles around common law versus natural law or God's law, and what the difference is between all of that, because people are getting rather confused. They're all very different. So I just want to kind of, first of all, very quickly before we go into the questions, is just kind of how did you get into this, and kind of how long have you been in it, just so people know a little bit of background on you?
Oh, well, that's a tricky question. I was born the son of a police officer and was always kind of raised with this common law as the superior law. This was kind of set in. And I was intrigued by that, but he didn't understand it really either. He was just kind of, he understood a little, skirted the edges. But I would say the last 15, 16 years, I've been deeply into what is law. Mm-hmm. Because it's like law is the rules for the game of life. If you're going to play a game, if you're going to play Monopoly or chess or whatever, you're going to learn the rules. If you don't know the rules, you're going to look at the manual. You're going to learn how to play them before you start playing, because it'd be stupid not to. You're not going to win. So, but we don't do that with life. Life's got a rule book, but we don't try to figure out what the rules are. No one ever tells us what the rules are. So I really wanted to know what the rules were. For man's law, how does that system work? So I could play it and win when I was younger, but more about, how does the laws of the creator work? What's the basic operating system for this reality? And how do you align yourself with it? So how do you be free? I didn't feel free. Did you feel free when you were younger? No. So there was always that desire, driven by that.
Yeah. Well, it's very interesting because, how we met, I didn't actually know you, and you popped into my email box, and I was thinking, I'm really interested in this stuff, and I don't know why. I knew nothing about it whatsoever. And obviously then when we connected, and you explained a little bit to me, but you were very secretive. And you mentioned the course, and I thought, oh, this is something I'm very interested in. And then we obviously had a retreat. We went on a retreat as well. And it was, for me, I was going in completely blind. And I still am, because I'm still on the course and I'm still learning in a fashion. But just for everyone that's listening out there, I just kind of want to be very honest about this, is the fact that until I met Greg, I very much thought about the legal system as a system that, it probably wasn't best designed for us all, but it was something that we couldn't really change in any way. Since meeting Greg, my mind has blown every single day I've opened one of these PDFs or the stuff for the course, because it's challenging what I think I know about our current reality. And that is something that can't be done lightheartedly. It's something that's extremely important for you to kind of really pay attention to. And Greg is so masterful in the way that he understands this and what needs to be applied in your life before you even try and set your law in any way. He explains it very clearly, of all the differences. And it's something that I want, because since speaking to Greg, I'd heard of natural law, God's law, common law, legal law. And I was thinking, what is the difference between all of them? It's so crazy. So I thought, why not just start doing some videos with him? And this is why we're here today. But I'm going to get straight into the first question, Greg. And basically, can you explain what common law is and why it's different from the legal law that we currently have today?
Okay, well, it's not necessarily different than the legal law that we have today. That's the point. So whenever you, as you know, we've already covered this in the course that you've taken to this point. Whenever you take a word and you add an adjective in the front of it, you're diminishing that word. Yeah, you call it a human instead of a man, colour of man. Whenever you put anything in front of that word, you diminish the power of that word. You don't add to it. We get taught to use this flowery language and adjectives and stuff when we're in school, but actually it has the opposite effect. We're diminishing the power of everything. So what's common law? Well, it's just another creation. It's another idea. It's not law anymore because you've made it common law. What's common law? Well, is it law common to something? What is it law common to? So when you just take the words and break them down into what they are, then you can start to see things for what they are. So what is common law? Well, at the moment, unless you define what it is law common to, then the legal society will happily define for you and assume for you, take your assumption that it is the law common to their legal society. Mm-hmm. The law common to Her Majesty, for example, in this country, or the law common to the land known as the United Kingdom, over which there is a government of occupation. It will automatically infer these things because we didn't express it otherwise. We didn't clarify what it was.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of, for people watching at the moment, if the way I understood it when you explained it to me was that there is a system out there that's not designed for us to thrive when it comes to our living situation. But there's a certain change in the language, and there's a certain change in the understanding of what all of that kind of jargon means to how we can play the game or not. And that is basically put in down, like if you explained it very clearly to me, is when we're born, we have a birth certificate, and on that birth certificate is a name, it's a title. It's not actually a person, it's just a certificate that tells you who you are according to the system that you've just been born into. But we ourselves are man or women, whichever we're born as. And there's something that, for me, that was a trigger point for me to know that there was a difference. When you explained it to me, it was like, ding, I get it. There's actually a difference between my name and me as this, this human being that I am. And it's a woman. Sorry, there we go. See? I'm learning. This is the whole point. I'm going to keep getting it wrong. So please check me up when I do this. But the idea is the legal system that they currently have. Would you say it's designed to be confusing? Would that be fair to say?
Kind of, but there's something in this. You see, one of the other big misnomers. So we've got misnomer number one is that common law is somehow some key to be free. Mm-hmm. It's not. Common law is legal or land unless you express it very clearly what the law is common to. Mm-hmm. Misnomer number two is that we were traded on the stock market. Somehow our parents indentured us into a lifetime of servitude and we were traded on the stock market. We're forever bond servants to whatever, the state. Mm-hmm. It's also not true. How it's really working, we use the analogy of the game of Monopoly a lot throughout the course, don't we? And because it's the best one. Because if you imagine that we're going to sit down and play this game of Monopoly, if we were doing that, we wouldn't at any point, no point in time, do you or I fall prey to the illusion that we are actually the car or the ship or the boot.
Or the dog. I'm always the dog when I play Monopoly. I'll fight you for that one as well.
We never fall prey to the illusion that that's what we are. Yeah, we just know that we're a man and a woman, we're sat around a table playing a game. And when we're done playing, when it's not fun anymore, we're just going to get up and we're going to go about our lives. We wouldn't ever think about, when you start to lose, I wouldn't get out a piece of paper and start betting my house that we're actually playing the game inside of on the game. You know, it'd be silly. We just don't do that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and it's literally no different in life. There was a token that was created to play a game of Monopoly at birth. Now, the system, so-called system, or those of mankind who have unwittingly operated the so-called system, have, by their own ignorance, tricked everyone into believing that they are that token. We go to school and we get taught you register twice a day, but it doesn't make you that token. I can train my sons and daughters to believe that they are the name on their birth certificate, or they are this fictitious entity, and they can believe it, but it never make it true. And if it's not true, then there was no indenture happening. There was no attachment to this. It never was yours. You never were bound into involuntary servitude. You never were traded on the stock market. You never were any of these things. It's actually a very stupid notion. And when you think about it, like the so-called cabal, the people that do run this system, that do love to create pandemonium on this earth, they love the idea that the birth certificate is some kind of indenture certificate. They would love everyone that wakes up to believe that somehow this thing is a slave bond, and believe and give it energy, so that everyone wakes up, goes into this whole new program where they've got to somehow escape this fictitious program, or this control grid, mm-hmm. of fighting something that doesn't exist, when really they're not in it in the first place.
So the way we're looking at it is that we have a passport, we have the birth certificate, we have titles to our houses, we have titles to our cars. We are in a system that is created and has been created for many years. And when we're born into this system, and we have a choice whether we can play that game and whether we are in that system, or whether we leave the system. Now, something that I find very interesting is you have a slightly different angle on this.
I'm saying that we're not in the system at all.
Yeah.
And we never have been.
Yeah.
But we can carry on
using the system,
maintaining the false belief that we are, if we want to.
Mm-hmm.
But at any point in time, we can drop that false belief. So, but when you speak about it from this direction, that's from the system in, and saying, okay, yeah, Greg, fine, but they'll still come for me, and they'll still do this, and they control, and they. There is no they. We need to do, maybe if we actually just say about what law actually is.
Yeah, that was going to be my next
actually
question.
Is right now.
Yeah,
then
go
you
for
can
it.
see what this is. So law, as it comes, as it is in this world, if you like, is in every place on earth nothing more than the rights to property. All law is concerning the rights to property. However, it may express that. And so in reality, what we have by these names, that's how they're recognized in the law, is man and woman, property and rights. That's really all that's going on. Mm-hmm. And if we start to see and speak of everything in those contexts, property doesn't mean I own everything. Property and ownership are not the same thing. If it doesn't sound the same, it doesn't mean the same. Property is that which I, a man, have the right to, exclusive to all others in a society. Mm-hmm. That's all. So from that fact, so this is the basis of law, is that there is only we of mankind, there is no government. There is only those of mankind who may at times take on titles and act in the name of government. And there is those of mankind who may believe that that government has some fictional power or authority. But the government was only ever instituted in the first place the lawful government was only ever created to protect the rights of property of man. Mm-hmm. So in the real world, if you want to express law, you simply need to do one thing and one thing alone, and that is to state clearly what is your property, as a man or woman. And what is the law for that property? You are the source of law. So I am the law. Yeah? Like Judge Dredd said that, right? It was Judge Dredd was bang on. That's exactly what it is. I am the law and you are the law. Well, you are the law to the degree to which you are able to express your law and your rules for your life into the world. If you can't speak it, if you can't say, I, a woman that rich, claim property by way of this, whatever it is, and I say that the rules for this property are such and such. I say that those of mankind who attempt to enforce administrative procedures on this property of I will constitute barratry. And I will consider it to be trespass by way of barratry if a man or woman does not make remedy for said barratry. You need to speak about things specifically as they are and be able to articulate what it is that we say are the rules for our property. And when you can do that, the problem is we didn't do it before now. We're all complaining that we're not free. Complaining that we're not free, that they are doing something to us, they're taking our rights away. And no, the only right you've ever had is the right to your property and therefore to set the law for your property. But you didn't set the law for your property. So all you need to do is set the law for your property.
So in order for people who may not fully understand that or comprehend it in a particular way, I'm just going to break it back down for you. So what Greg's actually saying at the moment is that we ourselves have been brought into this system that is around us. Now we have a choice. We were never really in the system. It's just that we're playing the game of the system. We currently have a choice to be able to govern our own law as opposed to being governed by those above us or around us or whatever it is you want to call it. Now, in order for us to do that, we need to fully align with what we truly know to be, truth, and what we feel within ourselves to be right for us, which comes under the self-work, guys, as setting boundaries, which most people have never been efficient at setting boundaries on their personal development journey or in their life in some way. So jumping onto a subject like law can seem like a massive step. It can seem like a very big thing because you're asking, this is the highest truth of one's life, is to govern yourself and to set your own law. If you cannot set your own boundaries and what you accept and what you don't accept just in your own life. So for example, if you're not setting a boundary and people are WhatsApping you at all the times of the night and they're WhatsApping you and you're like, it's really annoying. If you don't set your boundary and tell those people that you don't want those messages at that time of night, you're going to have a very little chance of being able to set and govern your own law if you can't communicate with your own friends and family. So this work is not just learning the terminology that Greg's talking about. It's not just learning to talk legal and understand what the hell he's just said. It's actually about comprehending it on a completely different level and learning to set your law in every single square inch of your life. And I know, Greg, you've done this. You express your law very clearly, very calmly. We've had conversations and I've seen you engage with others where we go in, I'm an expert on talkwards, awkward conversations and awkward talks. And you do that very well as well, in the sense of you have done this for long enough. You know what you want and what you don't want and what's right for you and what's not right for you. And that is a skill that people need to learn. But it's very not easy to do, but it's not as hard as what some people might think. In terms of learning what you know, it's just about staying true to yourself, which is the bit that I really want to go into with you.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. Is it's not complicated at all. There's actually only one thing that you need to do in order to simplify your life and be able to get to the point where you're able to set healthy boundaries, where they naturally are self-setting. You see, you can't actually set healthy boundaries. It's not a possible thing to do. If you try to force them, then you create walls, and that's not healing and balancing. That's just creating walls and illusion. Yeah. To actually set healthy boundaries, you have to face the emotions within yourself that are causing the lack of alignment. You're going to need to cry. You're going to need to shake. You're going to need to face your fears, look at the monster under the bed, do those things. You're going to have to do all that. So, sorry, there was a question there, and I forgot where we were actually heading with that.
No, I was going to go a little bit more around the truth angle, which you've just touched on, because until in my own life, until I really learned that I wasn't telling the truth in every area of my life, I was completely oblivious. You know, I would go into work and I'd be like, oh, sorry, I'm late, you know, traffic. No, it wasn't. I'd got up late, but I'm just not going to tell my manager that at the time. You know, there was all these little lies everywhere in my life that were governing my life, and my life wasn't what I wanted it to be. So when I woke up and realized that, oh, hold on a minute, I'm trapping myself in ridiculous lies that are absolutely unnecessary, and I'm seeing everyone else doing it at the same time, and it's these little threads, it's these little lies we tell ourselves. And when we were on the retreat, you talked about it quite deeply. It's the lies that we tell ourselves repeatedly that trap us. And that, you know, that it's not actually it's not actually an outside person or an outside group. Yes, they have an agenda in some way, and yes, they have succeeded up to now, because most people don't know about this, what we're talking about. However, when you grasp that you can actually change this within, and this is when everybody in the spiritual community will say, go within rather than without, you know, take the journey in. And this is what Greg had to do, and what his friends have had to do, and what other people that are on the course have had to do. We're no longer blaming the system, because the system's a game. The system is a monopoly game that you can either subscribe to or you don't. But what we are doing is taking full responsibility for our lives and how we govern ourselves. And Greg, you have vast amount of knowledge. We're not going to go into your history or anything today, because I think that's going to be good for another video. But you have successfully governed yourself. I mean, how many years have you been doing this?
Oh, well, it's not like a certain point at which it became an on switch. You know, there was like, it was a process of becoming to a certain sense of embodiment of that.
Yeah.
And it's still going. I'm not done. You know, it's more every day, it's more and more clarity as to who I am. And it did happen because from doing one simple thing, ultimately. Lots of other spin-off things, but one thing was at the heart of it. I was telling the truth to my environment and myself about every little detail. And most people left. See, this is what's going to happen. This is what people don't want to hear, is everyone's going to leave. You're going to lose everyone. Everyone. Maybe one or two will return. But everyone else, they're going to go. But in that space, space, you are then going to attract new men and women with whom to relate, that are clean, that want to hear what is true and want to tell you the truth. And you can actually have relationships that are based on truth.
Yeah.
And then life gets interesting. Then you're not gonna you've got to look at there's good reasons why you don't tell the truth. If you're not telling the truth about something, it's because you don't want to feel an emotion that is going to come up when you tell the truth. You don't want to feel like the anger that someone's going to project at you, or the whatever it is. So, you know, that's just another lie that we tell ourselves. And it's a really, really deep journey to go on to get to a point to be able to tell the truth with yourself and your environment completely. But it's the basis of it all.
So when it comes to telling the absolute truth and being honest with yourself at every level, that is obviously a hard journey. Would it be fair to say that I've heard a lot about common law since I've met you, and I've done my, you know, deep dive rabbit kind of hole in YouTube, and looking at all these videos of people figuring out that our system isn't fundamentally designed for us to thrive, thinking, right, I'm going to go and get out of paying my tax bill, or I'm going to go out and get and pay my, you know, council tax, whatever it is. We're trying to get away with our little things in the system, but there are legal loopholes and different ways of pronouncing things. However, a lot of these people out there don't seem to have got as far as what I think they could have done if they'd have, you know, because I don't think they were embodying the part that you're now talking about, which is the integrity and the truth. Because you can be, you know, you can get out of anything really legally if you know how, but it's the living in absolute truth that most people would not be willing to do. And that's when you can get, I think, metaphysically, which is, for anybody that doesn't know what that means, physically is everything you can see, metaphysically is everything you can't see. And I like to explain that just to make sure everyone knows. When we talk and when we speak and when we say words, they hold power, and those words have an effect on the environment around you. So you can change your environment by your thoughts and the way in which you speak. And what Greg's embodying and what Greg talks about is actually knowing this principle as well as knowing the legalese and the language around the law, that helps you to govern yourself energetically, spiritually, emotionally, and physically. And I feel like, would it be fair to say that some people out there that are doing this now, if they knew this, do you think they would get much further in their quest for the results that they're looking for?
Yeah, well, we started this conversation by common law. What's common law? Yeah? And I said, is the law common to what? So if you want to be able to express your law and be free in the world, then you need to get in touch with your law common to I. Now, all of the people that are variously looking at different aspects of common law, they're seeking for, do no harm, this idea of universality and care and love and the likes, but they're looking for it in the wrong place. But the reason for it is simply because they don't understand I. Mm-hmm. You can't understand who is I, who am I, and what am I?
Great question.
When you understand that, when you actually start to comprehend that as a soul, then you can express your law common to I. Mm-hmm. Say what my law common to I is. The test of this is basically, can you express what your rules are for your life and your property clearly? And could you explain that to any 12 men and women convened as a jury? Could you explain it to any of them in a way that they would agree with you? And when you can do that, and anyone could do that, I'm quite clear that I can do that for myself, my body, my property, my life, my rights. Mm-hmm. That's just a basic level of expression that we should be able to have and be taught as a boy or girl, never mind a man or woman. Mm-hmm. So we need to learn that skill to be able to express ourselves cleanly.
So could you give us an example of that? Because somebody is just putting in the notes here, in the comments, not notes, sorry. It seems quite vague so far. Could you give us an example, a common day example that our viewers could wrap their head around in terms of expressing the law of I? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Yeah, okay. So let's take a situation like well, let's deal with this current situation right now, shall we? Where there is all of these so-called COVID laws and restrictions, and you should be not going to demonstrations, or you're not allowed to, you'll get fined if you do this, or you'll get fined if you do that. So let's deal with, it's much easier to speak of expressing your law when you look at how it's being challenged. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, you can name any situation. What's one? So maybe.
I'm going to choose forced vaccination, just because it's, that's something that was on everyone's minds, and I got loads of questions before we came on, and they were all around basically, how can I say no to a vaccine? How can I set my own law and not have that happen to me or my family?
Okay. Well, this is first of all notice to the man or woman who at times act as whatever, Secretary of State for Health and Social Care, perhaps. But first of all, the vaccine thing is an interesting one, because there is actually everything in this that's working in the so-called system is by voluntary consent. So the chance that there's going to actually be like a mandatory, so-called mandatory vaccine is pretty much zero. It's always going to be voluntary. Now, it may be that they will try to deny access to resources, even food and other public places, if you don't have your vaccine card or whatever it is. That's fine. But what is that really? In reality, what's that? That's extortion. Mm-hmm. That's, if you don't do this, then you're not going to get this. That's extortion. Now, someone at the top of that pyramid is, now I certainly would consider that to be a trespass if someone is extorting. Now, someone that's there is a man or woman that can be held to ultimate responsibility for that. In this instance, it might well be the man who at times acts as Secretary of State for Health and Social Care in the UK, or it might well be the man or woman who acts as state governor in your state if you're in the US. might be that. And so you need to give notice to that man or woman that I, a man, Greg Paul, Nat Rich,
Woman.
Yeah, man, woman, Greg Paul, Nat Rich, say that I consider any actions and or regulations and or orders of you or those under the authority of you to be a trespass or to be extortion. And I will seek compensation from you, the man who at times acts as such and such, in the amount of £25,000 or $25,000 or whatever it is, your law, you say what it is, per instance of trespass by way of extortion. Each and every time that I or those in the care of I are denied access to a store or place of transport or public place or whatever it is, I say that I consider that to be a trespass. And I say I will seek compensation from you, the man, in the amount of those things. If you do proceed to impose that trespass upon I, a man. Just very simple.
So it's very simple to do, but in order to put it out there in life, we basically need to fully understand what might happen to us if we set that out. Because if we say we're going to charge someone or by way of trespass for £25,000, when we do that, what can then happen afterwards? Are they going to give us that £25,000? What's the likelihood people?
Well, that depends. This is the thing. So this is exactly what we're sharing in the course. You shouldn't be sending anyone a notice until you know that you can go and take that and you can press that as a claim in front of a jury of 12 men and women and convince them and make your case and know that you already have presented all the evidence. You set your law. You can claim and state and assert and convince 12 other men and women that you have the ability to set your own law, the right to do so. You then would need to be able to show evidence of the fact that you did set your law in this instance. You would need to present the findings of facts and conclusions of law that the man or woman that you did notice did trespass upon those rights and or law. And you would need to be able to express and put forth your order as to what you require as compensation, because remedy has not been made, because you have requested remedy several times, as an honourable man or woman would do. You need to be able to do those things. Now, when you can do them and you know that and it's set in yourself, the chance that you're going to need to do them is very, very small. To be honest, though, this whole the whole vaccine thing and COVID thing and everything, it's a bit of a misnomer to talk about it, because it's all in your heads. If you're afraid of these things, it's because you've not dealt with your fears around stuff. Because if you dealt with your fears around stuff, you wouldn't be afraid of any of it. You'd be actively aligning your life to having no dependence whatsoever on the system. So the only reason we're afraid of these things is because there's still this dependency. We've become inured into this system, this dependence upon it, this system that isn't even really a system, because we've not wanted to take responsibility for ourselves. So instead of looking at how to avoid, how do I avoid this forced vaccine and these fears, instead of putting all this attention into those things, just put the attention into how can I take responsibility for my life and become an independent man or woman. And if you do that, then you will become independent. You will not, most of the cause of these fears will fall away and you won't have them anymore. So
I want to touch on that. Obviously, I had to change my headphones because there was an echo on something. I wasn't sure what it was. So hopefully everybody can hear okay. So what you're saying right now is that we need to understand that there is no such thing out there as what's happening. And then when we do that, when we embody that we do have our rights and they have actually never been taken away from us, we just didn't know that we had them, if we are willing to look at it from that perspective, it's going to be much easier to govern our law. But while we're still thinking of the fear in the system, and we're still thinking that there's a major problem outside of us that's going to come and get us, we're not going to be able to actually govern ourselves in that way, because we'll be coming from a place of fear, which is not actually our truth. It's just fear. Our truth is actually that there is no fear. Is that correct?
Kind of. I'm specifically not saying that people should create new belief systems and belief structures. I'm saying that people should look and see things for what they actually are in each moment. And so I'm not saying to create a new belief system around, oh, I have the rights to do this and I have the rights to do that, and I'm not giving you a new belief system. Trying to explain how it is, so that you drop the belief systems that you have, which are false, upon which all of your fears are built, which are false evidence appearing real, built upon a system of beliefs which is not true. You need to undo and let go of the belief systems that are false. And you do that by taking on board just a little bit of the right knowledge. It's like in the course, how much knowledge have we actually given so far? And you're like 3 weeks in now, yeah?
3 weeks in, and I feel like it's been 3 years.
But it's not that
I've learned
much.
so much.
It's not that much more of it. It's like, this is more about what was bullshit from before now.
Yeah.
Like a little bit of new stuff, and all of this other stuff that renders everything that you were thinking to be true as false. And in that creates this space in which everything else can fall away. And your fears fall away because they're built on nothing. They're not real.
Mm-hmm. Magic spells is what they are. Magic spells. But when we undo the spell, that's when you can start seeing clearly. And so I have some questions that people have sent to me, which I want to read out to you, Greg. So we'll try and keep it short because we don't want to keep everyone here forever. But basically, are the laws that the government makes maritime laws? And why are they maritime? Why are they not based on land? Why are they based on water?
Well, first of all, there is no government. There's government is, as the word suggests, government. It's a mind control program. It doesn't exist. All there is man and woman who create various rules and agreements. There is no any law that those of mankind, so-called law or rule, that those of mankind create needs the agreement of all those that participate. So you can ask a lot and get drawn into the differences between maritime law and sea and stuff, but why? It's like where do you want to put your attention? Do you want to put your attention on playing the game of Monopoly as the man or woman sat around the table? Or do you want to put your attention on how to switch your identity from the boot to the shoe? The boot to the ship or whatever, That's what we're doing. That's what moving to common law and, I'll get my rights under the Magna Carta. Well, it's still someone else's piece of paper. Like, all right, so a king from 810 years ago or whatever put that down onto a piece of paper. So you want to get your rights from that king. That was his law. So you want his law instead of the modern day law. Well, you can do that, but it's still just switching up the identity of things. Maritime law is, we'll just play as the ship today, shall we, instead of the car. It's all within the game. Mm-hmm. And what I'm inviting everyone to do is to stop it. Just to stop, like, getting drawn into those questions, to see it all for what it is. It's all a grand ruse. Mm-hmm. And what's important is what law is. And law is what I and man say is law for property of I.
So there's no
nothing
reason
else
to
matters.
Subscribe. There's no reason for them the people to subscribe to the Magna Carta or to the common laws and all of that stuff. It's basically just to govern yourself. Forget everybody else's law. Govern yourself and choose your own law.
Law common
to
I.
Law common to I. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to move on to the next one. I don't know if there's a background feed. I can hear myself. If it's on your Have you got volume up on yours? I don't know. There's something going on in my ears anyway. Could be my ego having a chat with me at the same time.
I'll turn my speakers down just in case.
Yeah, if you can, that would just be wonderful. Thank
Better?
you. Oh, much better. See?
Cool.
No ego. She's gone. Okay, so common law and military law, are they connected? What would be the difference between the two? Again, I know what you've just said with regards to governing yourself. But if you can just answer this one specifically, what's the difference between common law and military law, if you know the answer?
Common law in the UK, so it's like, again, you have to define what law common to what. But making the assumption that the questioner is talking about like the common law of the UK or the United States. Well, in the UK, it's the common law of Her Majesty. It's her law. And it's basically what's built up by the case law, the long history of case law and decisions of judges. So it's where those of mankind who couldn't settle their disputes, they failed to remove controversy. They failed to bring peace. They failed to bring remedy. And they went before a judge. And a man acting as judge, and that man acting as judge passed a decision about that situation. And over the millennia, the centuries, this case history is built up about all these different decisions about what right and wrong is about being judged. That's common law. Mm-hmm. And what was the other one? Military law?
Military law, yeah, if there's any difference between the two.
It's just rules that apply to those who indenture themselves, who do voluntarily indenture themselves into the military, do give up their rights in exchange for whatever. It's a contract that goes with being in the military. But you see the difference, back to the common law there, we were just, common law only exists where you have failed to be a man or woman. Mm. Yeah, you only need judges' decisions where you have failed in your duty or in your ability as a man or woman to step forth and resolve conflict in any situation, to remove the controversy, to bring forth remedy. Whether or not you did the wrong or another did the wrong, you have the ability to remove the controversy and bring forth remedy. You do. Mm. And that's what you should do as a man. That's what a man or woman would do. So then you remove you starve the legal society, which includes common law. Common law is a part of the legal society. It's the evolution of the legal society. It includes statute. It includes the decisions. That's everything within the realm of the legal society. But the legal society only thrives on controversy. It needs a controversy in order to exist. Without a controversy, it doesn't have anything to adjudicate. Mm-hmm. When you remove the controversy and you put forth your law, there's nothing for it to adjudicate. It can't touch you. It can't meet you. But this is the problem, is that we're all set to create controversy, not remove controversy.
Okay. There's someone here's just put on here, you can still be arrested and you can be put in jail based on their law. That's correct. But there's a way that you can learn the language of which to speak in order to kind of separate yourself from that. Obviously, it depends on what you've done. If you've killed someone, then probably you might go to prison. But there are ways which are actually on the course. If you want to go deeper down that rabbit hole and get the answers for each one of all of these questions, it is.
Well, this is a really good one to go into. Yeah. This is a great one to answer. So you're talking about arrest. Well, assuming that this is something where you haven't caused harm to another man or woman, and there is not a claim by another man or woman, and a peace officer actually coming to detain you to provide remedy for that. Assuming we're talking about some kind of administrative procedure or administrative situation or, statutory law, then you need to put forth your notice, your law at the time again. So if there's a man or woman who at times acts as a police officer in front of you, you need to be clear enough about your law when he or she is saying that they intend to arrest you, to say, well, I think it's about time that I give you notice, man, who at times act as police officer in front of me, that you might call that an arrest, but I call it a trespass by way of unlawful confinement. And unless you've got a claim from a man or woman that I've actually done them harm, I will consider it trespass by way of unlawful confinement. And I will seek compensation from you, the man, in the amount of £1 per second the trespass continues. So up to you. You decide.
So there are opportunities at every moment in order to be able to come back to the situation that you're in and respond in it effectively. Most people would say, oh, I'm going to get arrested, oh, it's over. But this is why it's so important to understand your truth and to be living in it. Because when you're living in it and you practice this stuff all the time, whether it's, you know, getting back to people about going out the weekend, WhatsApps with your partners, whatever it is, the more quickly you can grasp the information that you're in your truth, by the more practice you're having, the easier it is to have these conversations when you get nervous. So say if there is a police officer there, if you're living in your truth regularly on, you know, day-to-day basis, you are better equipped to have these conversations and to think quickly when this happens, so you can actually use the knowledge that you're about to learn. Without using it on, you know, ongoing, it's very difficult to be able to call on what Greg's just said and be able to use it in the moment, especially when you see the policeman and you're already nervous. So it's really about doing this every day and learning this in every part of your life, how to govern yourself, speak up effectively, calmly, and communicate in a way that is true for you in the moment. And that's why being in the now is so important, but we're so distracted. You know, we'll jump on Instagram or whatever.
Yeah, I just say that when I was younger, I used to be terrified. You know, I was like a little scaredy cat of everything, really. You know, I was terrified. And I couldn't do any of this if I didn't face every single fear.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be willing to face every single fear. You wouldn't be able to speak. You wouldn't be able to express yourself. The words won't come to your mind. Your body will freeze, all kinds of different things. You need to go and face them and release them. And the only way you actually get to do that is by
practicing.
Facing and practicing and doing it.
You got to have those talkwards, guys. Awkward talks that truly matter. Talkwards. Okay, I've got another question here for you. Is it lawful for our government to pass laws without full parliament sitting there and no lords either? Is that lawful? Well,
there is no government. They're not passing laws. So you can agree to play along to it if you want. You've just got to decide what it is for your life. It's not about the government or whatever those of mankind who act as government. It's about you. Do you accept that? If you accept that and you're not going to do anything about it and you're going to say that's okay for my life, then it's perfectly lawful. You're okay. You're perfectly entitled under law to agree to that. You're also perfectly entitled under law to say, no thanks, that's not my law for my life or my property. And to put that forth. And maybe you want to put that down in a notice to the man who at times acts as the Prime Minister of this country, and you might want to do that and express that you don't consider that you don't consider that to be appropriate, and put forth your law to him and what you consider that to be. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so I've got one more question here. What's the symbology of the law system? Black robes, why is there a hammer, 12 jurors? Is there any mind tricks going on there? Or again, I know you're probably going to say don't even buy into it, just govern yourself. But do you know anything around that? Is there any mind tricks to why that is such a drama, why they all dress up in the way that they do?
Well, court is a show. That's the whole point of a show. And when I said if you want to be able to express your own law, you need to be able to convince 12 of mankind that you are right and explain yourself. Yeah, that's exactly it. You need to be able to put on a show. You need to be able to convince.
Act.
Yeah, not act. You need to be if what you are saying is in harmony with what's true, you won't need to act, but you will need to articulate it clearly.
Mm-hmm.
So a court has always been a show. It's always been that. But the question is like which court? So it's the court of Nat Rich. It's the court of Greg Paul. When you walk around right now, I am holding court and you are holding court. This is what we're doing. This is what man or woman does when they open their mouth and they put forth their views, their law, their expression into the world. We hold court. So when you go into the building of another so-called system, and there's a man who at times acts as judge, who's just a public servant, who is the law there? You're the law. You're the court. Are you going to ask him for a decision, or are you going to present the law, present the evidence, the findings of facts, conclusions of law that mean he has nothing to decide anymore, and you're going to require him to perform his function as a public servant and put forth your orders? And if he doesn't do so, then that's trespass on the case. The thing is that when you understand what it is and what the law is, you don't need to go and do this. No one's ever going to let you in a courtroom. They're going to run and rally to make remedy before it ever gets there.
Yeah. I mean, all these words that you use, remedy and trespass. I just thought trespass was when somebody came on your house, like into your home when they weren't welcome. I didn't realize trespass was a whole other meaning in terms of using that in every avenue of your life. So there's a real deep learning to be had here for anybody that is interested. There is so much for us to really get excited about. It's a whole new language that I'm learning right now in terms of what I'm discussing with Greg and what I'm learning on a weekly basis. And, words have power, but like Greg said earlier, and I was mentioning, you need to be able to govern yourself in order for these words that you're going to learn to remember and to come through at the right time. It's imperative that you truly do the work on a regular basis, and it can't be something that you just go, oh yeah, I'm going to take this on board and I'm going to know whether to say understand or not understand, because a lot of people say there's a difference with that. When you understand, you stand under something. People try and use these key words to see, and and because you're excited, because you know the truth of the word and the etymology and the understanding of where it came from, then you get excited about using these words. But it's way deeper than that. It's more than just a language. It's more than just understanding common law and Magna Carta. This is what Greg is saying to you right now, is that forget the Magna Carta, forget the common law, forget the legal system. Govern yourself from the inside out and live by that on a daily basis. And when you do that, you are holding your own court. And therefore, energetically, like I said before, metaphysically, those situations will very unlikely come to you if you are in your truth, because you're not inviting them in, because you're in your truth. But if you're refusing to step into your truth every day, you're probably going to get a few more of those scenarios coming to you that are going to require you to go and use this new language that you've been learning, because you're not expressing it correctly. But if you expressed it from the inside out, metaphysically, you won't even attract those situations in.
You have so much power that you are even capable of agreeing to let someone else control you. You have so much power that you can make any decision for your life in any given moment. At any point in time, you can step forward and decide to express yourself and express what is true to you. And as soon as you do, the world will bend to you and not the other way around. You just have to decide one day that I'm not going to get up and bend to the world anymore. I don't know what that means for me right now, but I'm going to just get up and I'm not going to do things that I don't want to do. I'm just going to not do anything that I don't want to do. Let's see what happens if I do that. Oh, maybe the world's going to fall, life's going to fall apart. Yeah, it probably will, but then you can rebuild it and reimagine it yourself. But you've got to do it. That's what it is to be a man or woman on this planet.
I think before we try and change the world outside of ourselves, and before we try and fight against a mass vaccination or whatever it is, if we tried governing ourselves at Christmas, and I'm going to set you a challenge here, speaking your truth to your family and your friends, regardless of how much you love them or not, or how much they annoy you or not, is difficult. If you can learn to effectively communicate yourself throughout the Christmas period, whether you want to go to someone's house or not, whether you want to spend time with them or not, if you can communicate effectively and tell them your absolute truth rather than bending it and trying to make it so that they accept it or they find it easier to be around you, if you can stand in your truth this Christmas, you have a really good chance on being able to govern yourself from January onwards for whatever the universe is about to bring to us. If you can't govern yourself at Christmas, or if you're still lying to people on WhatsApp, or if you're still ignoring emails because you don't know how to speak to someone, you are going to have very little chance to govern yourself. We really can make it super simple and do it every day. But I challenge everyone we've got 57 people viewing now, and whoever's going to watch this afterwards, challenge yourself this Christmas to live in your absolute truth, whatever that may be. And you don't have to be rude. You just have to be polite and say what works for you and what doesn't, and how you truly feel. And that will be your test of whether you can actually do this or not.
Yeah, you need to be willing to receive what appear to be the unloving results of others when you do that. Mm-hmm. And to be willing to allow that to happen.
Yeah.
Not be afraid of that anymore.
Speaking up is so important. And if, you know, your friends are your friends and your family are truly your family and they love you, then they will bend with you, and they will literally, so they won't bend with you, but they will actually allow you to do what you need to do, and they will still be there afterwards. But it can get lonely.
And if they're not that, then they're going to leave. But you've got to decide what's most important to you, whether you want to be free and have a happy life or not. You know, for those of us that have done this already and live a life that's true, every single day right now, 2020 has been a fantastic year. Like, I mean, every single day has got a little bit better, a little bit more. Like, you live by your passions and desires. Every day, more of those passions and desires come true. I could not even express to you what my life is like now. I can't believe in that. I can't believe what's happened this year.
I know, it's been bonkers.
Like exquisite. Like, it's like the best. It's like better than every other year of my life put together this year.
And I felt bad thinking the same. You know, people say, "Oh, how are you?" You know, because I'm up at my parents' in Yorkshire, and they're like, "How are you?" And I'm like, "I'm great. Like, I'm having the best year of my life." But because I was governing myself years ago, I didn't know I needed it for this purpose. But I've stayed true to myself. And if there's times where I can't spend times with my friends because I need to work on myself, I express that clearly, and I say, it's not because I don't love you. It's just I need time for me. They're all still there. My family support me so lovingly, but sometimes I can say, I don't want this today. And, you know, it's okay. I'm not offending anyone because I'm effectively communicating what's best for me. And I'm not doing it to hurt anyone else. I'm doing it because I need to exist, and I want to go where I need to go and create things like this. And now I'm here doing this. And it's because I've taken, and, you know, those times in the past where I've set my law, and I didn't know it was a law. I just thought I was, you know, sometimes I was a little bit bossy, but I needed to tame it down and communicate it effectively. But I actually have been governing myself for many years without knowing it. And it's so liberating to know that your freedom, you can't find your freedom in Australia or around the world trip. Your freedom is inside. Nobody can do anything to make you free. You can choose to be free, but you have to be willing to go inside. And that means closing your eyes and facing all the shit that you don't want to face, especially when the world's as crazy as it is right now. But I really do. I think there's one more thing. Somebody had one more question.
Well, just gonna say that. I think the thing that we mostly do that really holds us back is that you notice in any situation where you're torn, like you feel that you want to do something new or change life, but then there's a part of you that's stuck in the old pattern of things, and then there's like a split. There's always, in almost all of these situations where we feel stuck, there's like a split. There's part of us that wants new and part of us that needs the safety of what we've got. The biggest single thing that made a real difference to me was when I decided, okay, I saw that this was happening, and that in every one of these situations, it didn't matter which side I chose, which side won, I lost. And that it didn't matter whether I would push myself to do the new thing or stay with the old. Someone was going to lose. Some part of me was going to get steamrolled. And when I saw that, I thought, this is what needs to happen. These have to come together. We need to act as we need to be integrated and make our actions from an integrated place. And so I decided, okay, I'm not going to do anything from this day forward. I'm not going to do anything until I'm on board. So literally that day, I didn't get out of bed till quite late. So I'm not going to get my ass out of bed until all of me wants to do it. And so I had this internal conversation. What is it, the part of you that wants to stay here? What is it that you need? Why do you want to stay? What is it that's missing? Can I meet that need some other way? Now, do you want to have a shower? We're going to have a shower. Like, I was going through this fine detail. Do you want to go and do any work today? Not sure. Well, there's people waiting for meetings. Do you even want to let them know? And I'd get everyone on. I'd get myself fully on board before I would even write the email to say, no, I'm not going to come. I'm not going to meet you today.
Mm-hmm. It is,
and just like that degree of, and when you do it to that degree, and you're that on the ball with it, you don't need to do it for very long, because what happens is you start to build your own trust back. Mm-hmm. And when you can trust yourself to make decisions and take actions that are serving you, then you will start to relax and you'll start to feel safe in your own skin. And then you'll make better decisions and better actions and better everything. So,
and live a much better life, indeed. So we've had several people asking me as well on messages as well, where they can find more information about you, Greg. Well, first and foremost, you can definitely join the course that he's on, which is mind-blowing, and will definitely change your life in so many ways. I'm not even exaggerating. I'm in 3 weeks in and I'm already popped, and I love it. But yeah, there's a link, should be down below for that. Greg, do you want to add in anything else of where people can hear about you, or is it just come to the course and check it out?
Not really. There's a YouTube channel, The Sovereign's Way, but there's not many videos on there. I'm not very public. I don't want to be public. I don't need to be famous. We just want to share knowledge of the law, and
yeah,
they're not even out to change the world. Just support one man, one woman at a time.
Mm-hmm. I've had one more question here, actually. Fast forward to 2022. If nothing changes in the government policy and mandatory vaccines come in, how would you stop the army kicking in your door, removing you and forcefully injecting you?
Well, see, it's so difficult to answer these questions because they come from a reality that's not true and isn't actually exist. It's a concoction of your mind.
Okay. So would you say that
I'm not saying that those things aren't potential futures.
Yeah.
But for some people. But when you start to deal with your own fears, you will see that they're not a potential future for you. And they never were.
Mm. Yeah.
And that there never will be a forced vaccine. Because if you look at everything that's happened throughout those of mankind who have created these systems and do manipulate, try to manipulate the will of others, they've always done exactly that. They've tried to manipulate the will of others to get you to make a free will choice. At no point in time have they ever really imposed themselves, imposed things. They've always managed to get you to go along and volunteer. Because they understand the karmic laws, they even to some extent. They understand that there's consequences at the soul level for doing that. So they would rather manipulate your free will, which has a much lesser consequence, than actually forcibly doing things against your will. So the chance that there's going to be forced vaccines is about, slim to zero. The chance that, yeah.
I have literally got time for one more question, if you don't mind, because I think it's quite a good ending question, and then we can let everyone get back to their day. It's from Seamus. He says, I'm exempt from wearing a mask. What can I say to anyone who challenges me?
So, again, everything is about emotions. And all of these situations, first and foremost, there's an opportunity. Like, if you would feel you got some anxiety about being challenged, then allow yourself to face that and die to it, shake out that fear or whatever, and then you won't have that anxiety anymore. Do you know what happens to me more often than not now? When I walk around everywhere without a mask on, more often than not, people say to me, "Oh, are you exempt?" They don't even ask, "Oh, do you have a mask?" And I don't have to say, "Am I exempt?" No, never mind. I have to say I'm exempt. Never mind actually explaining or dealing with rejection of that. It never actually happens that it would be challenged.
Yeah.
Ever. And to the extent that most of them even put the word in my mouth, "Are you exempt?" Mm-hmm. It's like when you've changed your emotional state towards a situation, it will respond differently to you. And you don't need to walk around like all big and proud or anything. You're just your normal self, because you're not having the negative emotions around these things. So everything's like a gift. Like you should just see all of this COVID nonsense as the gift that it is. And in the ways that it makes you afraid or it triggers your other emotions, say, wow, this is really quite an amazing gift. This is an opportunity for me to release the fear and or grief and or anxiety and or anger and or whatever it is that I've been harboring that I was not willing to deal with before. And now I can get this shit out of me. So I'm just going to go with the flow. That life is bringing me this. I'm just going to surrender to it. I'm going to die to this fear, let it wash over me. And when I'm done, I will be free of it. And I will see the world for how it really is. And I will be able to then express myself. And I will be able to see what's actually true. And then I will be free, or a little bit closer to it.
Surrendering is the way. I love it. That's a good note for us to end on. Greg, thank you so much for today. I know you don't like coming out too much and doing these videos, but I'm going to drag you for more, just so you know.
Yeah, I think I'm going to just exclusively do a few videos with you, Nat, over the coming
Perfect. Oh, I love the exclusivity. Then thank you for everyone that's been watching. We've had over 50 consistent viewers for the whole time we've been on here, which I'm very happy with. And if anybody's got any more questions, put them in the comments. We won't answer them now, but I will do my best to work through them and get back to you, whether it's from what I'm learning on the course and I will give you the answer, or whether Greg can help me when he's got some time, but he's a very busy man at the moment. But if you are interested in the course, you can go down below and have a look on the link. And there's also a new documentary kind of podcast that I did last week that's not related to law, but it's also, if you want to know more about me, because it's a new channel, then you can go and watch that as well and get your Nat Rich fill, if that's what you want. And Greg, I'm not sure when we're having you back. We haven't organized it yet, but I will let everyone know. And thank you so much for your time, because this is integral work. It's fascinating, mind-blowing, and I can't wait for more and more people to get their minds around this and their hearts.
Yeah, well, thank you, Nat. Thank you, Nat Rich.
Problem.
You're the only woman that I call by both names.
I know. Right? It's very interesting.
Why is that?
I don't know. It's very interesting that I've actually, my real name, for anybody that would like to know, is Natalie Richardson, but I changed it because I used to DJ a long time ago. But I'm bringing Natalie back in a little bit more, and it's Natalie, because when you say Natalie, you smile at the end of it. So I thought, so I put extra E's on, so you can smile when you say Natalie. And for that, I will let everyone go. Thank you so much, and we will see you next time.
Cheers, man. Bye-bye.